Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I'm back for the evening. I wanted to get a few shows in this evening, especially since there have been some developments taking place around the world. So let me drop this in Twitter as I check my sound. Let's see. All right, first I'm going live. Now, all right, so second part to this. Let me check my sound. Give me 1 second. By the way, guys, the reason I have a little thing at the bottom now, my channel has been demonetized, at least for the next month. So anyone that wants to give Super Chat, if you're so inclined, and this is not a push to give Super Chat, this is just a heads up, there's an alternative way of giving it. That little link in the description box below allows you to click and it would go to like a Super Chat alternative that uses PayPal as opposed to Super Chat. Look, I appreciate all the help you guys give to the channel. And again, this is not a prod. This is if somebody wanted to give and they were like, hey, where's the Super Chat? That's why. The link at the bottom would allow an alternative. I am at DMV. I'm at DMV. And while I'm at DMV, I'm sitting there looking through my Twitter, and I'm looking through my phone, and looking through my phone, and looking through my phone, and I see a tweet. I see this tweet. Let me see if I can find the tweet. Right here. Labor has ended its disciplinary action against Margaret Hodges. The MP expressed regret to the chief whip, so no further action is taken. What the fuck? Labor has ended its disciplinary action of Margaret Hodges. The MP expressed regret to the chief whip, so no further action is taken. Well, that's amazing. Now, I started looking up stories on this while I'm there, and the first story, I see this. Labor offered to drop Hodges' disciplinary action if she apologized. Now, for those of you who are like, what are you talking about? This woman, Hodges, runs up behind Jeremy Corbyn and screams like a goddamn howler monkey that he's a fucking anti-Semite. She is talking to the leader of her party using language like that, a fucking anti-Semite. Every time that the media records this, they never use the term fucking anti-Semite. They just use the last part. But in order to get across the gravity of what was being said, you need to use the term fucking anti-Semite. The woman was unhinged. She's an absolute lunatic. Now, what is she using for this? What is she using? What is the thing? What is the edifice? What is the trigger for this rage to go screaming, foaming at the mouth, that the leader of your party is an anti-Semite? What are you using? Was it something he said? No. Not at all. At the end of the day, Jeremy Corbyn is not anti-Jewish. He's pro-Palestinian. And that is a problem for some of the people in labor, especially people who have, let's say, a tether to Israel. Her being one of them. In fact, she's two tethers. Blairites are terrified that Corbyn is going to take over, especially in this situation with a weakened Tory party that could fall apart and is falling apart at the seams as we speak. It is disintegrating before our eyes. If you go back, Theresa May will be an inch shorter tomorrow. So they know this. The Blairites and the Jewish lobby know this. And for the first time in God knows how long, you have somebody who acknowledges that Palestinians exist. And this is somewhat of a problem. They want him to accept language that would prevent Jeremy Corbyn from essentially criticizing Israel. That's what it boils down to. Now, everybody knows this, meaning the people who are around him, Tom Watson, the other people in labor, Tom Watson, that turncoat, who was not really a turncoat, he was always a Blairite, but was waiting for his chance to stick a knife in Jeremy Corbyn. And this howling lunatic, completely unhinged, as a political opportunistic asshole, goes running after him. Now, the key thing is, there was already a plot for this woman who's essentially a tax dodger to go after Corbyn to try to unseat him for the leadership. Months ago, this was already in the making. So all of this is to some degree political opportunism. They want to prevent him from being able to criticize Israel. Now, here's the catch. Israel continuously conflates what it means to be Israeli with what it means to be a Jew. And I say that to say, when I make criticism of Israel, I'm talking about Israel. I'm talking about a state. There is a difference between criticizing something that is to do with the thing that makes a person up. Meaning the person doesn't say squat and you're criticizing what that person is. That's racist. That's anti-Semitic. Fair enough. But that's a different thing than criticizing the actions of a state, which is what Israel is. It conflates itself with being a state versus being a Jew. With this idea of criticism of the state sometimes gets conflated with the idea of criticisms of being a Jew, which, as I make the point, is what's taking place now. Any criticism that Jeremy Corbyn has made of Israel as Israel continues to steal land and as Israel continues to murder other human beings and as Israel continues to put kids in prison and gas babies, as it's doing those things, I'm criticizing this like I would criticize any other state. You saying something to me that you don't like about my video is not necessarily because I'm black. Just like me criticizing Hillary Clinton has nothing to do with because she's a woman, or me criticizing something that Dick Cheney's daughter is doing has nothing to do with her being gay. Now, it is possible that people could be racist or sexist or homophobic, or in this case, anti-Semitic. But to use those things of race and sex and sexuality as an obfuscator, as something to essentially shield you from criticism, actual and right criticism. And that's what Hodge and her cronies are doing. They got rid of this investigation because they didn't like the optics of this particular investigation. That's what it boils down to. Hodge, whether she expressed regret in the way that she came about it or not, it's kind of besides the point. She did that purely for political reasons. All of this were purely for political ends. All of this was a pure political attack using something as nasty and repugnant as anti-Semitism. The smear of anti-Semitism, not the reality of anti-Semitism. There's a difference in those things. This woman is a political actor. Now, they've hyped this up, screaming that Jews are somehow in danger, that Jeremy Corbyn is an existential threat to Jews. Forget the fact that Israel is arming neo-Nazis, real Nazis, in the Ukraine. Forget the fact that they were arming and supporting terrorists in Syria. But the guy that you have nothing to show that he's anti-Semitic, that doesn't have a racist, anti-Semitic bone in his body. If you did an X-ray and you scanned every morsel of Jeremy Corbyn, if you took the most powerful X-ray or ray, say you had some kind of ray in some kind of scientific world and you could scan for racism and you scan Jeremy Corbyn's body with the most potent and intense of that particular beam, you will come back as if you were looking through glass because you will see no anti-Semitism in that body. Yes, I'm being hyperbolic here. But the fact is, she has nothing to show for what she's saying other than wanting him to take a particular standard purely to try to prevent him from criticizing Israel, which at this point has considered itself a Jewish state, an apartheid state. At this point, it owns it, or should own it. Let's look at this paper, because this is, fact is, what this person is saying here is technically not correct. Labor has ended this, expressed regret. Hodge, Margaret Hodge, lunatic Margaret Hodge, says she hasn't expressed nothing. She says she doesn't even know what she's being investigated for. She says, not only have I not expressed any regret, I have not given an apology, and I have not gotten an apology. The woman who screamed like a howler monkey that the leader of the opposition or leader of her own party is a fucking anti-Semite with nothing to show for it, is potentially looking for an apology. This is nonsense. All of them know that this is nonsense. All of this is done purely for political effect. I don't know what the people in England or the UK are thinking about this, but this is done for political effect. Theresa May's government is falling apart. The Blairites are concerned that Labour or Jeremy Corbyn is going to take office. They are terrified that Jeremy Corbyn is going to take office. Hodge essentially was a weapon from the standpoint of the Blairites, but she was also a weapon from the standpoint of the Jewish lobby. The same Jewish lobby that had somebody ejected out of the country. That's the person working with Israel as a spy was kicked out of the country. And one of the things they noted was they didn't like Corbyn. All of this is a ploy. This is a political game. How she's acting is a political game. She is milking this for all it's worth because she wants to keep this up in order to attack Corbyn. And one of the things they keep adding into this conversation that has nothing to do with this conversation at all. Right here. Right here. Hodge, a secular Jew with relatives who died in Auschwitz concentration camp, called for disciplinary investigations against her and her colleague Ian Austin to end. What does this have to do with the price of tea in China? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? What does her family dying in Auschwitz has to do with the price of tea in China? That has nothing to do with this. This woman, like a banshee, screaming that the leader of the opposition was a fucking anti-Semite. That's what this is about. She knows what this is about. Pretending otherwise gets across the insincerity in what she's saying. She knows goddamn well that she's screaming at the leader of the opposition that he's an anti-Semite. That's the problem. She has nothing to show for it. She is attacking the leader of her party. That's the beginning and end of this. Her family dying in Auschwitz has nothing to do with her being a political hack and going after Jeremy Corbyn. Nothing. I'm not going to keep this long. This annoyed me. Leader of their party gets attacked, outright attacked and abused and smeared. And the party itself, because it's under political pressure with this anti-Semitism nonsense, because they don't take on the very specific definition of the word, the specific definition of the word that would allow Israel to claim anti-Semitism every time somebody attacks Israel. No, he shouldn't take that definition of the word. There is no ironclad, worldwide known definition of the word. There are organizations that take the certain definition. Corbyn doesn't have to take that. This is purely an attack. A shallow attack. That woman should have been held up for disciplinary action. And they're saying that, oh, she showed regret. Well, when you talk to her, in this article, she said, I didn't say squat. I don't know where they got that from. And not just that, not have I not only given an apology, I have not gotten an apology. And that's where Margaret Hodges now, unrepentant, doesn't believe she did anything wrong, calls the leader of the opposition or leader of her party a fucking anti-Semite and walks without consequence. They dropped the disciplinary action, and they dropped it getting nothing for it. It wasn't disciplinary action at all. They just didn't want to go this route because this woman is screaming about anti-Semitism. That's what this is about. This is an attack on Corbyn. And to Corbyn's credit, he held his shape during the entirety of this. But now they're talking about Corbyn potentially having a quote-unquote climb down speech. This is nonsense. This is utter nonsense. I'm going to end this here. I don't want to keep this long. And after a while, I'm just going to be screaming at the camera. I'm putting both articles at the bottom so you can see for yourself. In one case, it starts off with apparently they were talking to her. In the second case, she came out saying, yeah, I'm not apologizing for anything. And I suspect she knows that the politics, to some degree, are on her side, depending on how stupid the population is. People who are around them know what's taking place. They know. Corbyn knows. Tom Watson knows. She knows. Everybody that's around them knows what's taking place. They know why this is coming up. Over and over again, they've mentioned why this is coming up. This is purely done for politics. This is purely for politics. Any changing or making of a definition for the standpoint of anti-Semitism that will be a standard that Labour would hold itself by cannot, I repeat, or I should say must, allow for the criticism of Israel, especially if Israel is killing and murdering and maiming and stealing land and breaking international law. It needs to be called out. In fact is, for the first time around, the issue here is not that Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semitic, it's that he acknowledges the plight of the Palestinians. That's the beginning and end of this. What does a prime minister look like of the UK if that prime minister not just acknowledges, but seeks to find some level of resolution to the plight of the Palestinians? That's the beginning and end of this. It's politics. All right. Out in this, John Mann, we'll be coming for you if you criticize Israel. Israel is a state like any other state, and it can be criticized as such if it's doing shit that warrants its criticism. Period. That's not being anti-Semitic. That's being a goddamn person. If you are attacking Israel, and again, I'll say this again, and I'll end it here. Conflations are sometimes made on the left from the standpoint of Israel and Judaism, but Israel makes that conflation itself. This idea that Israel represents all Jews, it does not. It represents the Jews that are in Israel, and maybe not even all of those, because there are some people that are completely against Jews, that are completely against the policy of Israel. A criticism of some African country doesn't mean that you hate all blacks. Just like a criticism of what's taking place in Mexico or Iran or whatever else doesn't mean you hate all Muslims or Arabs. There's a difference in those things. The conflation takes place oftentimes because Israel itself allows for the conflation that takes place. I am not for any level of anti-Semitism, nor am I for anti-racism or anything else. Those things imply that there is some inherent quality of the individual that's producing a particular behavior. I don't believe that. I think those things are ultimately either culture or where the person was raised or how that person was raised in the area to which that person was raised, etc., etc., etc. But those are based on actions of the state. And the state of Israel can be criticized just like the state of the United States, just like Texas, just like New England, just like anywhere else can be criticized. Corbyn better hold his shape, otherwise he will be hung by whatever he gives away in this particular role. So I'll end it here. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone.